We're going to start with some signings. The wrath of Khan continues. Omar Khan making 2 more signings for the Pittsburgh Steelers ahead of the 2023 draft. Ike, it's been too many moons since I've seen your face.
Man, good to see you, Mark. Omar has been in the front office, has been on fire when it comes down to these free agent signings. I'm just happy to see him making them kind of moves, man, because he's making me relapse mentally on how we used to win football games. And that's building from the front, which I mean offense and defensive line, and work your way to the back, Mark.
Yeah, and you're talking about Breiden Fehoko. Going to get that pronunciation down, Ike. Keanu Neal, too. Yes. And so with Fehoko, for me, it's like, okay, you got Montravius Adams up front. Another nose tackle who's going to be on a 1-year prove-it deal, and it's going to be best man available. This has been my theme all offseason long with what Omar Khan in the front office is doing. You've positioned yourself come the end of this month, come April 27th in the NFL draft. You can take best player available because you have players that are good enough. And if you want to make upgrades along the roster, you don't have to draft for need. And that to me is just more and more evident. And I'm excited to talk about Keanu Neal as well, Ike, because I was looking at his Pro Football Reference, and it's like he's lined up all over the field, a Swiss Army knife, if you will.
Yeah, with the new signings, with my personal opinion, Mark, what Omar in that front office is doing, they're getting guys who other teams might feel like they don't have it. These guys on these 1-year deals feel like they still have something to prove. Mark, so when you get guys like that, when you get former offensive linemen who played with Kenny Pickett in college, when you get an LSU Samoan offensive lineman who brings a lot of energy and passion towards the game, when you use a team who you used to be with, and that's some of our assistant GMs who used to be with the Philadelphia Eagles, now we're getting some of the Philadelphia Eagles offensive linemen. And when you think about the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, all you think about run game and protection. This offensive line had the least sacks out of everybody in the NFL last year. And you think about protecting your quarterback. So when we talked about our show, Mark, we talked about if Kenny Pickett can have an offensive line who can protect him, if Najee can have an offensive line where the holes can be a little bit bigger, I wonder what the Pittsburgh Steelers offense can look like with the Pat Fairmont, with the Kenny Pickett, with the Deontay Johnson. And here we have it. So the offseason moves this front office has been making, in my mind, I'm an A+, and plus. Now you get into the draft, Mark. You get into the draft. Now you can go for what you got 2 options. I can get a need or I can get a want because I feel the holes I needed to in this free agency. Keanu Neal, I'll let you pull out some of his stats, but I've always been a fan of Keanu Neal. And the reason why is because you're right. He's a Swiss Army knife. He can play strong safety. He can play free safety. He can play as an outside linebacker, and he can blitz. So one thing I did like about Keanu coming out of college was his toughness. And I always thought he was a Steeler. And what do you know? 2 days ago, we wound up getting this young man.
Ike, I was looking at his background. So he played last year with Tampa, the year before with Dallas, and then he was in Atlanta for several years. And I just look at his Pro Football Reference page to look at his stats and say, okay, he was a Pro Bowler in his second year, used it as a defensive back, seen him play a little in the nickel, play it at the safety positions. He gives you versatility. And I think that's the big thing of, okay, Minkah Fitzpatrick, DeMonte Casey, you'd imagine those would be the pairing. But if either of those 2 players are injured, or if you want to give the offense a different look for what you want to do schematically from a defensive standpoint, he's versatile and he's just a football player. Because I look at the Pro Football Reference page, I'm seeing free safety, defensive back, free safety, middle linebacker in Dallas. So he's used to playing with different spots of the field. So it's not just what he's doing, but also when you've played different positions, you have a better understanding of what you need to do for where you're lined up among your other 10 teammates on the field from a defensive standpoint. So I look at that versatility, and that excites me, Ike, because injuries are inevitable in this sport. And so if you have someone go down, you at least have more depth at the safety position, especially with the departure of Terrell Edmunds to the Eagles.
Well, you got to look at it like this, Mark. It's one thing I thought especially when it came down to the nickel for the Pittsburgh Steelers, it was losing Mike Hilton. And what did Mike Hilton bring? He brought that personality, that tough man personality. And he carried that on to the Cincinnati Bengals, Mark, that tough man personality. If you ask anybody in that defensive room, other than anybody on that defensive line, who actually has the best personality, the toughest personality, they're going to say Mike Hilton. And when you bring a Keanu Neal into the building, this is exactly what you're bringing. You bringing a guy with a tough guy personality. All he want to do is play physical, play physical, play physical, play physical, play physical. He just so happened to be bigger and taller than Mike Hilton and played many other positions than Mike Hilton. But other than that, man, I look at it as like, this is exactly what they missed from Mike, but they went and got another version of Mike. He just so happened to be taller.
And I think we saw flashes of that with Cam Sutton as well, Ike. And that's why you see Sutton get the big contract with the Lions this offseason. But then I think what happened is we can't afford to play Sutton in just the nickel position. We need him on the field as a corner this last year. So you didn't see that big playability playing in the box where you're closer to the line of scrimmage, you're closer to the football, and you're making more plays almost as a linebacker more so than a defensive back. So I think you saw that some from Sutton, but I think the team needed Sutton's ability as a corner as we went more and more throughout the season. And then we see what his open market value is. I don't fault Sutton for going and getting that deal
Correct.
with the Lions. So I think you saw that a little bit of that void we've missed from Mike Hilton, but just the playmaking ability. And it was like with Hilton, it was sacks, and then it was the turnover creation. And there's a reason he brought that to Cincinnati, and he has helped Cincinnati make the playoffs every season he's been a Bengals player. And hopefully the Steelers can get back to that of whoever's at that nickel can do what you need to do from a defensive back standpoint, but you almost serve as an additional linebacker with what the Steelers do defensively when they decide to run a nickel package with 5 defensive backs out on the field.
Yeah, Cam made himself some money. These past 2 years, Cam made himself and put himself in position to go and get some money. He wound up getting it from the Detroit Lions, Mark. Keanu and Michael Hilton, the one that we acquired, Keanu, and Mike, who was once a Pittsburgh Steeler, they bring an extra linebacker mentality. Cam was more of a cover nickel than hey, blitz me whenever y'all want to. I'm about to create havoc kind of guy. So you got 2 different styles of play. And it worked for the Pittsburgh Steelers when they needed Cam to go in the inside and cover. But I think the defense relies heavily now on the physicality part. And when you bring a guy in like Keanu Neal, this is exactly what he's coming with.
Ike, if the Steelers do in fact draft a corner come April, come the end of this month, I'd be very excited because of the veteran leadership that's there with Minka, with Neal, with Patrick Peterson. So it's like, if you're coming into a locker room of guys that have done it at the highest level and knows what it takes, not just to have success, but to be dominant. And so I look at that 17th pick, or whether it's 32, whether it's 49, whether it's later on in the draft beyond the first 3 rounds, Ike, if they bring in someone, the development that you would have because you can see how dominant players have done it before you, and it's that Steelers tradition of passing that down, that really, really excites me.
Yeah, Mark, if you're coming in as a corner, you got to think about it. They watched Pat Pete come in from LSU, turn LSU upside down from locking guys up to punt returns, then him going to Arizona from locking guys up to punt returns, then him going to Minnesota and still being able to be a Pro Bowl corner. When you look at a Minka Fitzpatrick and you go back 2 years ago and you see the first game against Cincinnati when he won that game, damn near single-handedly on his own, from picks to blocking punts to fumble recoveries to pick sixes. And you've been watching this guy since Alabama, and you watched in Miami, he damn near played outside linebacker, damn near strong safety. He goes to Pittsburgh, Coach T said, I got a perfect spot for you. I'm going to sit your butt in the middle since you're the quarterback of his defense, and I'm going to watch you work. So just being a young lad coming in and playing anywhere in the secondary, you've watched these guys since you was in high school and college. Now you got an opportunity to play with them in the pros. Man, if I was a young kid coming out and the Pittsburgh Steelers wound up drafting me, I'm going to be like, I watched Patrick Peterson be a professional on and off the field. I've watched Minkah Fitzpatrick make nothing but plays, whether he was with Alabama, Miami, now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to follow in those footsteps on how to be a professional or try to at least live up to that kind of standard. And when you get that mentality in the secondary, Mark, and you got a young guy who's looking up to these Pro Bowl guys, it's a lot. Keanu Neal as well. He was once a Pro Bowler. So we're talking about 3 guys that we acquired, not from the draft, but from free agency, that has been all pro or to a Pro Bowl. Why not come to the Pittsburgh Steelers and learn nothing but greatness if you're a cornerback going into the 2023 draft?
I'm excited for the Wrath of Khan to continue, and that's going to be my theme with Omar Khan. Shout out to Star Trek. I'm really excited for that to continue on as we get closer and closer to April the 27th.